World's biggest tourism fair, ITB Berlin comes to India, powering the first edition of BITB New Delhi. Hear them speak their minds. Meet them, do business, interact and network.
My name is Tony DeStalfo. I'm a research analyst with Phocuswright. Show of hands, how many of you have heard of Phocuswright? Very good, my marketing is working. All right, what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to do a brief presentation of some research that Phocuswright conducted earlier this year that looks at the Indian market, some overviews and consumer insight. Before I do that, let me tell you a little bit about Phocuswright. Phocuswright has been around for 20 plus years. We do research on a global basis, focused 100% on the travel industry. 3 primary research initiatives that we go after. We size markets. All right, so let's look at how travel is faring when compared to Indian GDP. Well, Indian GDP is scheduled to grow between 6 and 8%. The travel spend is actually going to grow at a much faster pace. So again, good news if you're in the travel industry here in India, the people are going to be spending at a higher rate than the GDP of the country. So prospects are bright overall. Now what we also wanted to look at was online travel. It's a growing sector of the community. Following this presentation, we're actually going to have a panel with some of the OTAs here, leading OTAs here in India. So when we look at the total spend for online travel bookings in the Asia-Pac region, it's a little less than a third. About 105 of the $346 billion is being spent today online. When we look at India, it's about $9 billion. So 9 of the 25, about 37%. When you look at the overall penetration of online travel in the Asia-Pac environment, India is actually one of the leading online players. So there's about 37% that is being conducted online today. It is actually the leading market today, although China is growing at such a rapid rate that we think China will surpass India and be the leading online market in the very near future. So we're looking at this and we say by the year 2020, over 40% of the total travel booked from the Indian market will actually be done online. Now the reason why we see that increasing is 3 things, okay? Number 1, there'll be improved banking and telecom infrastructure that will allow people to move online and to transact their business. There'll be a lot more OTA activity. We're going to talk with some of the OTA providers after this on a panel, but they're also going to get more aggressive and actually go after Indian travelers with supply deals. And then finally, I think as people get more comfortable with buying online, they're more likely to do that. And so we think the online penetration is going to continue to grow. All right, what are we going to do next? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring up 3 online travel agencies that are represented here in the India region. We're very excited to have them here, and we're going to dive in, leveraging some of the research to get into a very engaging discussion. So first up, I'd like to introduce the regional manager for the Indian subcontinent for Booking.com, Vikas Pola. Vikas, please, to the stage. Yes, round of applause. Our next presenter, please, Senior Vice President and Global Head of Lodging and Partner Services at GoAbibo, Parikshit Chaudhary. Please, Parikshit, come on up. And then last but not least, Senior Vice President and Head of Business Development for hotels at MakeMyTrip.com, Ritwik Quarry. Ritwik, pleasure. All right, gentlemen, let's get started. How does your business break down? So you saw some of the statistics that would suggest that air is a larger part. How do your businesses break down? Because how do you break down air versus everything else?
Well, the thing is that Booking.com is a 100% lodging company. So, well, no air, but I do know that air is growing fast, and it's actually helping the lodging space just generally in India, and we're very excited about it.
For us, last quarter, our non-air business was about 59%, Just about the time I joined the company, early 2012, it was in the 15% range. So fast galloping, and non-air now has exceeded the air revenues for us as a company.
All right, so 59% today. Do you see that continuing to rise?
Oh yes, yes. I mean, and a very ambitious target for 2020.
Okay. Parikshit?
Yeah, I think our numbers are slightly steeper there, and our non-air contribution is about 65% in transaction volume.
So about a third on air and
Yes.
2/3 non.
And non-air would again have bus and hotels. Bus, because of our Red Bus platform, we are pretty strong. We're there. I think Red Bus has about 80% market share in terms of bus. Hotels significantly in that 65%. So hotel actually
primarily
is the
hotel.
growth driver for us.
The way you
as well.
started.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about repeat business. So winning a customer is hard enough. Keeping customers is even harder. So what are your strategies around repeat business?
Well, we have certain products of loyalty program called Genius, and it's fairly simple that one customer which books through Booking.com 5 times becomes a Genius, and they basically
Over what period of time? So five times period, and
Period.
then you're a genius.
Yeah, you become a genius.
Even I can do that.
You can do that, but you have to the booking has to materialize, and you don't have to cancel. So you get straight 10% discount on the best properties. So Genius is actually by invitation. It's not a program where any property which is really low kind of transact. We select those properties which are best suitable for our customers.
And then once you're a genius, are there other categories, or is that the main?
That is the only category
Only
because
category.
we really believe in a few fundamental core, right? To have the best of the supply, which is purely unique, develop great experiences for customers, and provide them with the right price, being very close to partners.
So that sounds like it sounds like it's a good yielding opportunity as well.
Correct. We don't look at loyalty as a discounting channel. We do not really.
Upsell.
Yeah, we do. It's not a commodity. It's an experience.
Got it. Okay, Ritwik, how about you? Repeat
us-
customers and loyalty.
Yeah. So for us, the two big pillars for kind of retaining customers or getting customers to repeat with us is led by largely our simple loyalty program. It's a very, very simple program called My Trip Rewards. You book 4 transactions with us, or of which one has to be a hotel transaction, and you get a free room night. Now, it's by far the most rewarding loyalty program in the that we know of. It's also by far the simplest. The same thing transcends into if you do 8 transactions, you get 2 room nights, and that's the cap for the year. So if you do 8 transactions a year, you get 2 room nights. So that's one big pillar of our loyalty program through which we keep getting repeat customers. The second big pillar is obviously the e-wallet. We play very, very aggressively on the wallet side, and that becomes another big reason for customers to keep coming back to us. They keep tracking their wallet cash, they keep redeeming their wallet cash, they keep getting the refunds on the wallet. So net it becomes a sort of the most compelling feature for them to keep coming back to us. Both these are actually supported very aggressively by a very, very unique, or not a unique, but a very progressive CRM program. And I think we made a lot of strides on that. We made a lot of strides on personalization. So both these put together then aid for the repeat. Today, as we speak, even discounting is personalized, and even discounting is loyalty driven. So that's kind of adding to the repeat that we get, and that's what we do.
Great, excellent. Parikshit, how about you guys on the loyalty side and/or repeat customers? What are your initiatives?
Yeah, Tony, I would like to step back a little. I think GoIBibo was the last entrant in the Big Four, as you presented, right? And when we came in about 2010-11, I think what we observed at that point in time, while the incumbents were doing a fantastic job with respect to growing the category per se, but India per se has a huge bit of long tail. And when you have long tail and they are not connected online with respect to inventory, you would have issues with respect to fulfillment. So you might book the room and you might stand at the hotel door and the room might just not be available. I think that's fundamentally what GoIBibo actually started off doing, where they said, when you book a room at GoIBibo, it's guaranteed fulfilled, right? So fulfillment, and when fulfillment happens, obviously you get repeats. So the trust builds and you gradually build that. So that was our first tenant, and that's in terms of fulfillment, which we today also hold very close to our hearts. So that's where we think that customers would come back. The second tenet is obviously CRM. I think in terms of after sales, post sales service, I think that's phenomenal in terms of taking up any issues and solving that. And the third thing that is taking the world by storm is our currency, which is called GoCash, right? So there are two currency wallets that we play. Travel in India per se is a fair bit of social phenomena, right? You would see a lot of social angle coming in. And we have come up with something called as GoCash Plus. So where if you sync your phone book and anyone in that phone list per se travels, you earn some bit of loyalty point, which can be used for next booking. What it essentially does is that it hooks on the consumer, and it kind of helps us to grow our periphery in terms of holding on to the customers.
So that's your loyalty plan is this whole Go Cash system. Self-funded? Do you sell cash as well? I mean,
No, you can't do that in current kind of regulatory framework. Okay. At every point in time, then when you transact, it's kind of a realty points which gets credited to your account in terms of cash.
I have my prediction. All three of these gentlemen will continue to be very successful because they've done a phenomenal job here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause, please. Vikings, Parakshit, Ritwik, thank you guys. Phenomenal work.
Phenomenal entrepreneurs, and we're going to shift and talk a little bit about innovation. One of the things we have done at all of our events at Phocuswright is something we call the Innovation Summit. It's a flagship of our conference. What we do is try to find innovative companies who have phenomenal ideas that we think are going to change the landscape for the travel industry. So today we've assembled 5 presenters who have been at our conference, and we've asked them to come here today. So ladies and gentlemen, if I would please have a round of applause for our first innovator, Deepak, the founder and CEO of Conclave.
So this is what the environment is coming through. And when you look at what's happening in that space, I kind of divide this business into 2 parts. And if I is a sales tool that hotels needs to use, and that's where we got kind of re-questioned ourselves. Now we call it Conclave stands for Keep Knowledge for Electrical Analysis. Yeah, kind of complicated, but I'll explain what that means as we go forward. So, a lot of this in 2008 and 9, the concept of audio routes was not even outdated. To either improve your restaurant or to make sure that the problem does not get escalated. That's what we do. There are many feedback management products available, but what we've done is focus on the hotel industry. One of the first to actually allow feedback happen through. Thank you.
A little bit over time, but we're going to be okay because our first presenter is always over time. Really interesting stuff he's doing. All right, let's bring our next innovator to the stage. He's the Regional Vice President, India and the Subcontinent at TravelClick. His name is Joy Ghosh.
So to start with Q2 of 2016, this is at a global level that you can see that about 38% of all the business that comes is direct business. And it's important to look at this because we are going to be showing some of Delhi figures against this, that how does market Delhi match up against this. And of course you have CRO, web, OTA and GDS. So what you see as web is book direct, and on a global level they're clearly above. This is a split between America and non-Americas and how this is shifting year on year. So I'm sure that people are looking at the OTA figure, how they're changing globally and how web is changing globally. So interesting stuff. With all the stop clicking around and other campaigns that we have seen, this is what we have seen year on year on Book Direct.
All right, we're going to keep moving here. Let's get our next innovator to the stage. 2 down, we've got 2 hotel-focused innovations. Now we're going to have Gautam come up, the founder and CEO of Audio Compass. Very interesting piece of technology. Let's make sure we get him a clicker.
Thank you, Tony. Can I get my presentation up? Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Last couple of presentations were all about data. The panel before that was about hotels. I'm taking it one step further. Vikas, you talked about this. We are changing the way people experience their destination after they get out of their hotel and into the city. This is the next frontier in travel. This is where all the spend is happening. All of us are here obviously because India is a hot market. We all have a very, very diverse customer base. We all we know that young urban consumers are driving the growth. Tony, you talked about that a little bit earlier. But all of these guys have one thing in common, and that is that 72% of them want some form of guided experience during travel. This is a astounding number. People need help while they travel, and many of us travel companies, including DMCs and travel agencies, don't recognize that or aren't doing enough to actually address that need. In India, with sites like this, obviously you can't blame them. There are just so many stories, so much information beyond just buying a ticket and getting into the monument or the fort or the neighborhood. The problem that consumers have, though, is that they're basically stuck at two ends of the spectrum, right? On one end, they can either pick up free information, completely unstructured, available online. This is where TripAdvisor comes in, Wikipedia. There's a bunch of apps out there that are taking the 20 pages about the Taj Mahal and dumping it back to you in a somewhat structured format. It's easy to find opening hours and closing hours, but when you get there, you have to rely on this unstructured information.
All right, let's keep moving. We got 2 more to go. Where's my 4th innovator? Are they in the house? Satish, where are you? There you are. You ready to go? Yep. All right, let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause to the founder and CEO of TTW Holdings Limited, Satish Singh.
The data points for a customer to make a buying decision is very limited. When you talk about poor data points, the customer needs to make a buying decision. This person somehow doesn't trust a travel agent to a certain extent. Because this person wants to control his own destiny as far as planning his trip is concerned, booking his trip is concerned. So when you encounter this kind of a traveler, you need to be very, very proactive. This is brief glimpse of experience what they are about. So the travel agent can actually create activity of his own. He can add hotels. So one, you are able to maintain a very tight band with the customer. Two, the customer is supposed to make the right decision because he's getting all the relevant information.
All right, let's bring our final presenter up to the board. He's the co-founder of Pick Your Trail. He's Harry Gadanapati. Harry, where are you?
Nal, thanks a lot for your time here. I think one of the good things that has happened because of the delayed flight is that my slot got pushed to the last, but also gives me a lot of hope because a lot of what I'm going to speak is already covered. So for example, Vikas, you spoke about how personal search is going to be the next big innovation. Parikshit spoke about how mobile and social is the next big thing in travel. And Ritvik, you spoke about how mobile is going to be a travel assistant when you start traveling. And obviously my friend Gautam spoke about how 72% people like experiential travel. Right? So always once in a while there comes a kind of bunch of people who are crazy. I'm going to try and move slides. Okay. So a bunch of people who are crazy and they want to try and do something that's extremely outlandish. Right? So before Pick Your Trail, I was with a company called InMobi, who is basically trying to take on Google and Facebook for mobile ads, right? And a lot of my startup inspiration came from InMobi. And it was very clear that when we picked up travel as a space, so I've traveled to about 35 countries and it's a very strong passion. And we said, let's fundamentally change the way people travel. And we didn't kind of take up a very small part of the problem, but we took the entire value chain itself. So broadly, travel happens like this, where it's a package store. They're planning in Excels, right? So a lot of people end up going to OTAs, travel agents, picking up package tours, or those who want to experience themselves, enjoy planning, end up doing a lot of Excels that they actually spend significant time on. Okay, the clickers. Or the third option is actually to walk into a travel agent, right? And this is where we saw an opportunity where we say, hey, is there a way we could simplify the entire process for the new age traveler? That's where we sat down and figured out what are the pros and cons of all these methods. So when you look at self-planning, it's obviously time consuming. People hop 38 sites to actually put together a vacation. And then there's the next bunch of deal hopping. There's a lot of talk about, how payment wallets are in, there's coupon codes, and you're never sure if you're getting the best possible rate. So it's a huge, cumbersome, time-taking process. And especially if it's your once-in-a-year international vacation, you have to write off at least 7-10 days of solid work for this. If you go to it,
or coming up soon. So if I'd ask him to join me on stage, he is the Chief Commercial Officer for Interglobe Technologies Quotient. He's Sandeep Dvidi. Sandeep, pleasure. Welcome. Our next presenter is Rahul Puri. He's the Area Director of Revenue Strategy in South Asia for Marriott International. Just made a small acquisition. How are you? Deep pockets. And then finally, our final speaker is the Chief Revenue Officer for Taj Hotel Resorts and Palaces, Chinmay Sharma. Come on up. First thing I'm going to ask you guys is, tell me how you sort the difference between a leisure traveler and a business traveler, and how do your strategies differ by traveler? So let's start with the Taj.
So I think the difference between leisure and business is merging quite fast. I think for a traveler to have a single purpose of visit, that's probably not true anymore, because
so
the paucity of time, I think they're kind of merging a lot of these things together. It happens in our lives, so I'm sure it's happening in a lot of other places as well. So we don't have a very strict definition of, for all our metrics, etc., we have a market segment for leisure business as well. But it's really hard to break it down now, because a person who's booking Monday night on booking.com is probably not a leisure customer, but in the traditional sense, it's
right. That's what it's viewed.
So, so on the operations side, so there are a couple of different answers to this question. On the operations side, of course, we have to make sure that the hotel is very well geared to what the customer really wants. And then on a distribution and a selling perspective, we have to sell to these guys a little bit differently. And what we're seeing is that even if it's a corporate traveler, we have to actually bring in a lot of these elements of the destination. What else can you do outside your typical meeting process? So the way we pitch to the customers is also changing, not only in the one-to-one interactions, but also in the online space. So it's getting a little bit more complicated now.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Phocuswright did a study earlier this year, and the degree of, we actually coined a phrase called bleisure, which was business and leisure combined. More people are doing it. It's like 50% of the millennials will actually extend their trip, and they will do that for 4 days. So there's really a big opportunity here, but it does blur the line. So on the Marriott side, what are you doing different? How do you distinguish between the two?
So yeah, just echo to what my colleague said on the Taj side. We're seeing on the Marriott front few things. Number one, Marriott presence on the leisure hotels is going up. So that's definitely helping us to attract more leisure customers. It has predominantly been a business driver, so most of our mix has been a business traveler. What we are seeing changes over the last few years is two things. One is automation. So what automation is doing it from the consumer point of view is the leisure customer who would traditionally book through the standard source are now coming in, direct through OTAs or even direct, and really combining that to our operational expertise at the hotel. How do we really retain that customer and give them a little different to what the business needs are? So to your point, yes, it's a two different segments. We do take business and leisure separately. So we've seen a leisure customer now picking up even on the business destinations. The weekend stays are much stronger than what it used to be, I think there's definitely a scope for more.
That's good. Now, Interglobe's a technology company that helps hotels. Do you do anything specific regarding CRM?
So, first the concept in this whole, especially from a leisure and a business point of view, I'll touch around that particular thing first. So the challenge in this whole environment, I think hotel bookings, if you really look into, is a more education Means we see the bookings trends, and I'm sure these guys must be seeing, especially from a GDS perspective, the more bookings are coming from a TMCs, and they don't see any bookings from a other agents. And the challenge that whether these guys are educated and whether the focus of it, hotels are there into this segment or not. So means if I look into percentage term, the attachment rates, when we call attachment rates, it's with the trip, means when the person book a flight, whether the hotel has been booked for that or not. So the attachment rate in GDS industry, means especially from India perspective, it's in the range of 1.8%. That's really bad, and which means basically it's take a data more from a TMC space. So TMCs run in the space of somewhere around 18% of a attachment rates TMC. That's a travel management companies. They have that. So it's a awareness. But having said that, from a product perspective, as a means technology company, what we do. So recently, around 2 years back, we introduced a product called Travelport Rooms and More, which has a inventory of roughly around 650,000 hotels. And this is nothing. It's basically a meta bookables option basically. Means Booking.com, all these guys, their inventory comes into that. So 27 aggregators throw their inventory. It's a kind of platform where anyone can book anytime, any kind of inventory. So it's a more of an education, I think, which is missing. When the person travel, a travel agent never asks him where you're going to stay. So that's a main challenge in my opinion.
Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, give them a hand, please. Sandeep, Rahul, Chinmay. Great job, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. That ends our Phocuswright Fast Track. If you like what you saw, why don't you come visit us at one of our conferences. My name's Tony DiStalfo, and on behalf of Phocuswright team, I want to thank you all for coming and wish you all a good conference. Namaste.
World's biggest tourism fair, ITB Berlin comes to India, powering the first edition of BITB New Delhi. Hear them speak their minds. Meet them, do business, interact and network.